Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. In this week's Tuesday's Tip of the Week video, I'm going to be giving you my long-term review of the Big Boy Archery target that you see behind me. Now this one I've had for 2 years, but it's really only been shot consistently for 1 year. Now, the first year that I had it, there were some other things going on in life and I didn't get a lot of time to shoot very often, but for the last year it has seen pretty consecutive shots. So I'm going to give you a full rundown of what I think about this target now that I'm pretty much phasing it out for my own use, and let you know how it held up, what I would expect from a target if you bought it, and how I would use it. All right, so to start with, let's go over the construction of this target, and then also I can give you some similarities and differences between the two targets that I've had made and that I've gotten from Big Boy Archery targets. If you haven't watched my first review that I did over these, I will link that here in the video above. You'll be able to click on it and view it. This was, the review there was done with the original target that I had. It's all white. And then you'll see here, this is a multicolored target. Now this multicolored target is not one you can buy from Big Boy Archery. This was actually a test set that I got from them to test out some different parameters that I'll go over later on in this video. Now these targets are all layered foam construction. They are, on the one that I have here and the way they're currently being made, they're thinner strips of layered foam. They did have a batch for a little while with thicker strips of layered foam, and that wore out really quickly for archers and it did pose some problems. So they learned from that and they did go and adjust it. So if you've gotten one of these targets in the past and it wore out really quickly and you had problems with it, if it did have the thicker foam, that is a different way that they made them just for a very short time. So it is back to the thinner foam layers. Now these targets are banded together when you buy them, so they come just as you see them here. You don't have to put them together. The bands are on here and it's compressed foam down. This target itself is actually compressed a little bit looser than the white target that I had originally from them. That was one of the reasons we were wanting to test this and just see what it did. The looser banding on here would be really great for a younger archer or a female archer or somebody just looking for easier arrow pull. So even when this is brand new, you really won't need to have an arrow puller even with carbon arrows or micro carbon arrows. So it works really well for that. It does decrease the life expectancy of the target just slightly, and I'll go over that later, but that gives you an idea of how these targets are made and how they're built. Multiple different sizes that they offer. This one is a 24 width, it's 36 inches tall. So just kind of give you an idea how it is, but it's got pull handle here on the top, and it's built really well. It's built really sturdy. I haven't had any issues with it the entire time. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it here on video, but there is a large diameter carbon shaft there that I've actually missed when I was forgot to reset my sight doing different distances when I was getting a 3D bow ready. Hit the wood, didn't split it, too bad, didn't mess it up, didn't knock it off. And then over here, there was one that I hit the top of with a micro diameter arrow that seemed fine too. Was able to pull that one out. But they are really well made and really sturdy in those regards, and they hold up really well. All right, so now let's go over what my findings were with this particular target. So this one, like I said, with the lighter banding, it did allow you to have pass-throughs on the target pretty early on. Now, when I say pass-throughs, I don't mean the arrow was completely going through it and it was causing problems, but you would get a little bit of the arrow sticking out of the back of the target if you shot it in one spot long enough. So I would notice that, for instance, on a 50-meter round with micro arrows, by the end of the 50-meter round, there was an arrow point sticking out of the back of the target a little bit, maybe an inch long. On my indoor rounds, when I would shoot like a Vegas round, by the end of the Vegas round, I was getting the arrow sticking out a little bit of the back. Other than that, it wasn't too bad. And again, that's with a lighter banding and an easier arrow pull, so you would expect that to happen with these targets. This one rather is not insanely thick. It's their standard width as far as depth and everything on the target goes, so it's their standard made there. So it's not really thick and designed for stopping the arrow like my original target was with the tighter banding. After I shot the target and really just wore it out, especially if I was just shooting in one location. So this was really more recent, within the last month or two maybe. I started noticing what you'll see here on the back of this target. Now I did spin this target around and I used both sides and I used them up evenly, but this is, that was the front of the target the last time that I've used it. This was the back of the target just recently now. And you will see that there was some foam and just different things starting to come out. So that's what I noticed towards the end of the life of this target. It did start to chunk, so chunks of the target were coming out, and then it did just completely push the foam out as well on the well-used, heavily shot areas. You'll also see that it's a little bit uneven here. So you can see that in the areas where the arrows were hitting, especially on my Vegas rounds, so I'm using the really big arrow shafts that weigh a lot. It's pushing pretty hard because it's a lot of kinetic energy behind that. And that's just due to, one, the construction of this target not having super tight banding, and two, as the foam is wearing out, there's nothing to continually compress, so the banding is essentially not working as well, and it's allowing the foam to move around some. Now you can fix this. You can kind of bang on one side and you can straighten it back out. It's not a big deal, and I never had anything where it was in danger of pushing a layer completely out or a chunk of layers completely out. I never had to worry about that. There were some pretty good dramatics every now and again. Right towards the end this last month, I would shoot, and in different areas it would hit, and you would hear a pop that almost sounded like maybe a 22 going off, and a chunk of foam would come out. So it really, every time it would happen, it'd make me laugh because it looked like you shot a bird with a shotgun or something. It would just poof, and there's foam everywhere. But other than that, I mean, it still held up really well. And if I was going to use this target for myself, if I had a vertical face, I could still use a vertical face on here and I'd be just fine. Or if I wanted to try to hang single spot faces in certain areas. So I may use this one for up close work, but I'm definitely going to still keep it for my son and our daughters to be able to shoot into it and have easier arrow pull. And I mean, the target's just fine for them, obviously. But after a year of good use, this one is definitely shot up in regards to shooting it with a target bow, mostly upper 50s, so 56, 7, 8, something in that range was my draw weight, and then the arrows that I was using were between the micro arrows and the thicker indoor carbon arrows. All right, so what would my choice be if I were to actually order another one of these targets, and what would I want to look for with it? For me personally, I want the tighter banding. I'm an archer that's going to shoot a lot of shots into a target. I'm going to shoot into concentrated areas, whether it be a Vegas face, 5-spot, or even a single spot at distance. So for me, I want the tighter banding. I don't care about the arrow pull. I have an arrow puller. I'm perfectly okay with pulling arrows out that way. Doesn't bother me. Now, if you're an archer that shoots higher poundage, you're also going to want the tighter banding. And when you order these targets, that is something you can specify, as far as I know of, that you can tell them, hey, I do need a little bit tighter banding than standard. I have a higher poundage arrow or bow rather that I'm shooting, or I'm a target archer, I shoot more arrows. I do want a little bit of higher tension on the target itself. That's what I would recommend for it. The white target that I had originally, I'm actually gone back to that and started using that again. I hardly had any shots on it really when I got this one, so it's still in really good shape and it works perfectly fine. I've got several rounds through it now this month, and I don't see any pass-throughs, any problems with it. So with the tighter banding, it definitely works really well. One thing to keep in mind with the big warrior archery targets is price point. Price points on these targets are at least a third of what you're going to see on some other brands like a Block or a Reinhardt. And really, if it's a Reinhardt target, it's a tenth of the price almost. Those are really expensive. But durability is also less too. So I know that for range use, I don't know that I would recommend big warrior archery unless you're just economically needing a price point to start up a range or do something with it, then yes, go for that. But I do know that in comparison to the Block targets that I have at my local range, the Block do hold up a lot better. Now, arrow pull on those is easy for the most part for a normal style target. It's pretty average, but just construction on the way they're made, the materials, they do seem to hold up better. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't have the science of all that. But do keep that in mind if you're looking for a good target to come into for yourself. For personal use, these are perfectly fine. I have no problem recommending it and telling you to buy another one of these. All right, so one last thing that I want to talk about in this video is Patreon. So if you didn't watch last week's video, I will link that video here so you can watch it and you can get a full description over what that is and what it means. But This week you will have for tier 1, I'm going to be going over the shot execution manner to hold steadier on target paired with the front weighted stabilizer setup. So that was what I went over last week in the Patreon tier 1 video, was basically just how to set up a bow the way that a lot of the top archers are using right now, the top professional archers are doing. Information that I've gotten from them, information from what I've done off of my own research, and then this shot execution video that will come out this week for tier 1 and tier 2 Patreon members will show you how you need to kind of handle your shot execution and also how to steady up what you're seeing in order to get the best out of both worlds, the best out of the stabilizer and the best out of your shot execution. Now, tier 2 gets an additional video this week. Tier 2 is going to be going over tournament nerves. So if you follow me on Instagram, our son Cole, he had his first ever archery tournament last weekend. It was a really interesting experience. He's gotten a bow a couple years ago, but he's only really shot it a little bit when he first got it, and then he shot it for a week before this tournament this time. So it was interesting. He's a select baseball player, so he doesn't get a lot of time for archery. He gets a couple months off. In the winter, we took advantage of that with the tournament coming up. But dealing with the tournament nerves, advice that I gave him, what I use for myself, some information that I've gained from With Winning in Mind, which is a book by Larry Bassam, and just overall kind of some tricks that I use in order to help you stay in the moment and keep from getting too stressed out. It really helps you kind of calm down. So that will be the 2 videos that will come out this week later on. If you're on Patreon, when I post those, it should give you an alert. If not, check back Wednesday and Thursday, and you should have them on there. My goal is to get one out on Wednesday and then the next out on Thursday to be able to view it. I'm really close to a giveaway or 2 giveaways rather. I've hit the first giveaway goal. So if you're on there, I'm going to take the first 10 people that signed up for Patreon. That was the first goal, is to hit 10. You will be in a giveaway that I will show you in the video over shot execution. So at the end of that video, I'll have the giveaway, be able to show you live, and kind of whoever gets to win it, it's a free coaching session with me. Now I'm 1 Patreon away from my second giveaway. When I hit 20, I'm going to give away the R-Shot center shot tool that I have. I talked about that in last week's video as well. And I'll do a drawing for that is hopefully this week, maybe after this video post, and I can do it. But if not, then it'll be in the week next week after this. So you'll be able to see that in the tier 1 video. So all the giveaways will be in a tier 1 category. Tier 2 category will just be the extra videos for the Patreon subscribers that I have that pay at that dollar point. But again, I appreciate y'all watching the video. I like these big boy archery targets. Not really affiliated with them at all. When they're first coming out, I worked with them, was one of the original purchasers of the targets, and just gave them my feedback on what to do with it. It's been a couple of years now, and their business is growing, and they're still doing really good. So I appreciate everybody watching, everybody for subscribing on Patreon, and I'll see you soon.